Leah Sharibu is alive, so says the presidency, and also another journalist arrested for criticizing the government. When will this end? Well, this is Plus Politics, and I am Maryann Okon. The presidency has dismissed speculations that Leah Sharibu, the last Dapchi schoolgirl still held by Boko Haram, is dead. It stated that Miss Sharibu is alive and the federal government is negotiating her release from the terrorist group. Is it possible that the schoolgirl might be alive after all this time, or could the statements made by the worker kidnapped by Islamic States of West Africa Province ISWAP group in July this year, saying that Leah is dead, could it be true or false? Now, there's so many stories out there and we do not know which to believe. But joining me in the studio to analyze this is Jide Ologun. He's a political analyst and a legal practitioner. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
And of course we have Francis Chilaka. He's a political analyst. It's good to have you join us, Mr. Chilaka. So I want to start by talking about information management, communication, messaging from the Buhari administration to us, the people. First things first, the issue of Leah Sharibu came up as a result of her parents screaming and shouting that, hey, every other child was taken back, but my child is still there. And it has metamorphosized into, she's dead. Oh no, she's not dead, she's alive. But then we have a video that is showing us some aid workers who were kidnapped recently in July. What the lady succinctly said, that Leah Sharibu is dead. And I'm wondering what it would pay her to make up such bad stories if it were to be false. So I'll start with you, Francis. Why is messaging such a big issue with the Buhari administration?
I think there's some form of disconnection between the presidency and those who manage the media of the presidency. Ordinarily, I expect that those who are responsible for informing the people should actually be proactive. It's the duty of government to ensure lives and properties. It is the duty of government to also tell the people the truth. It's the duty of government to say, whenever a rumor comes out condemning something or saying otherwise, it is the duty of government to immediately arrest the situation.
But in this situation, because whether we like it or not, it's a very sensitive one, is truth the way to go, or proper information management? I'm saying this because sometimes intel or intelligence has to be properly managed. Not everything has to be given to public. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, well, obviously, I'm not saying that...
and we're not security experts, but we know this much.
I'm not saying that the presidency should come and tell us their plans to go and rescue her. That is when intel comes in. But I'm saying that, people are entitled to know at every point in time the state of mind of that person. I mean, how many months? I think it's about a month now. We had this whole thing about 2 months now that the girl has passed on. And then, all of a sudden, Garba Shehu is now telling us she's alive. Now, you need to show people evidence that she's alive. You need to convince people that she's alive, and not just telling us that she's alive and you're still negotiating. This is about 1 year and 7 months or so since she was taken away. So I'm trying to understand what state of mind is she right now that we're talking of saying she's alive and that they're negotiating.
Well, we'll take a short break quickly. When we come back, we're still discussing this. Jide Ologun, Francis Chilaka are here in the studio. Stay tuned. Well, you're still watching Plus Politics, and we're looking at the Leah Sharibu story. Apparently, the federal government has come out to say that she is alive, contrary to naysayers who are suggesting that she may be dead. But then again, we have a video that was released by some persons, aid workers who were kidnapped by ISWAP, and the lady in that video claimed that Leah was dead. Let's take a look at that video, and when we come back, I'll be speaking with my guest Jide Ologun, who's also here in the studio. Let's take that video.
For Nigeria,
I begged that Nigerian government should please, I'm begging again, please, do something to see that we are released, because this has occurred before in this organization, Red Cross, where some ladies were caught, Hawa and Zipporah. They also asked to be released, but because Nigeria did not do anything about it, they were killed. I am begging on behalf of all of us here that please, Nigeria should not allow such to happen to us. And it also happened again with Leah and Alice, because Nigeria could not do anything about them. They were not released, they were also killed. I beg that Nigerian and our organization, Action Against Hunger, should please do something and see that we are released. Thank you.
Mr. Jide Ologun, you have seen that video, and that video surfaced, some time ago, I think sometime in July. With all of this back and forth and what the information minister is saying, what do we believe? Who do we believe in at this point?
It's quite indicting, because you expect that the government should have what we call trust capital. Mm-hmm. You should be able to trust the government to protect the interests of the people and portray the truth to the people. But here we have an account of somebody who appears to be in touch with the situation. But we are also in an environment where we have denied several issues. Let's take our minds back to how this Dapchi kidnapping took place. There was a report that the military troop withdrew from circulation in Dapchi. Mm-hmm. The kidnappers came in, and when some of the girls were to be returned, it was a shoddy script that was played out too. In fact, the excuse given for retaining her was more like a provocative excuse that she refused to denounce her Christian faith. But the Christian community decided to follow the injunction of God that you follow peace with all men, and we thank God for that. And it's so disturbing that we have painted a picture of a government that is overwhelmed by terrorists, whether we admit it or not. But having said that, let me make allusion to what happened in Saudi Arabia. We also found ourselves in the net of those who were peddling drugs to Saudi Arabia, who were to be executed. Some were, but one got released through the intervention of the government. So there are several issues attached to this, and it's quite embarrassing. Recently, I was doing a study on the most dangerous countries in the world to live. And I don't want to tell you Nigeria is in there, but when you look at the countries that fall into that category, you talk of Kabul, you talk about Afghanistan, you talk about Yemen. We have similar symptoms. And basically, even locally, we have admitted the unnecessary and alarming state of insecurity. So what exactly is going on? And the government cannot be exonerated from what we have in Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. So the big question now is that should we not be at peace in our country? Should terrorists have the field day? You look at the case of Boko Haram when it all started. Shekau was reportedly killed about 3 times, and you kept on seeing this guy surfacing and threatening the whole nation. Recently I was reading a report that the military is probably like being apologetic and giving excuses for how our soldiers are killed like fowls. A country that is rated so brilliantly and proudly in military prowess manifestation in the West African sub-region, what exactly is going on?
So the question is, what is amiss? Because all of this is somewhat pointing back to governance, to leadership, and political willpower. Because if we want to start digging up history as to why soldiers are being killed, as to why they're not well equipped, it's a whole kettle of fish on its own. So what is amiss?
Like you said, there's a difference between political interest and governance interest. When governance interest is on the front burner, you do everything to secure lives and properties, give people the welfare they deserve, and of course, position your country on the platform of pride globally. Let me give a brilliant example. When you read or hear about America and China fighting, they are engaged in trade war, not rudimentary war. It's the battles of the prosperous. But here we are, at the rudimentary level. You see, we cannot even be sure of any policy statement that is made. There's a disturbing one that is still going around the circle now, which is our claim to food security. And within 2 weeks of that, we presented malnourished children. You see, so we need to go beyond where we are. But it's quite unfortunate. And many are suspicious that this whole kidnapping may be a project for some Nigerians who have chosen to terrorize this nation. And I will probably make allusion to what happened in Zamfara, is it Zamfara State now, where a kidnapper was released by the military, Taraba State, who killed policemen. And you link that with the allegations of General Theophilus Danjuma, who accused the military of colluding with the criminal elements, then you are likely to get confused about the exact role of government in all this. And that is why I like taking us back to what my amiable president said when he presented the budget of 2019 to the House of Senate, that the world is watching us. And I think the world is watching us. And we need to do a lot to recover the glory that was associated with this country. It's quite embarrassing. And if Leah Sharibu is dead, we pray she's not dead. It's really, really a terrible thing. And I love what the government did in the case of El Zazaki, when the followers started making insinuations that he was dead. He was allowed to be visible to the people or whatever, but we are talking about terrorists now. But the big question I'm asking, which may touch some hearts this day, is that if Leah Sharibu were to be the daughter of a minister in the federal cabinet, or a vice president, or a governor somewhere, will this be the report? Francis, and I am asking that democracy is still the government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Okay, Francis, I'm just wondering, because he's painted a very interesting picture. The question here is, where do we go from here? Because I remember that the parents of this girl at some point said government had abandoned them. They were not getting any information. But if government is negotiating with Boko Haram to free this girl, should the public also not be in the know? Like I said, we're not asking for intel details, but we're saying, should there not be some form of communication to douse tension or to quell? Because if there is room for speculation, if there is no proper information out there, there's always room for speculation. Hence the reason why we're having these speculations.
Exactly.
So what does government need to do in the interim?
Yeah, when government says that they're negotiating, and I keep asking, this is negotiation that's been going on for a year plus. Now, the same government is saying that they will not pay ransom, which has been the bottom line of this whole issue. This is the clog in the wheel, ransom. And there's this alleged, it's still alleged, that the Nigerian police in Delta State paid 3 million ransom to free a DPO.
Allegedly.
That's why I said this, yes. So the thing is this, I'm one person that believes that you must always attack cancer from the roots. We need to understand when and how did we get to this point. This whole thing about kidnapping, don't forget, started in the Niger Delta, when they were, using it as a tool to draw attention to, the plight of the people of the Niger Delta. And it went out of hand. And I remember what I said then. I said, this whole thing about police and thief arrangement will become a lucrative business. So kidnapping in Nigeria today has become a very lucrative business. And it is not business handled by illiterates. No. It is a business handled by well-educated young men who parade themselves as bandits, as Boko Haram. Because I've been thinking, this same Boko Haram, we all claim they don't understand English. They don't understand their left from the right. But then they can actually kidnap, they can actually hold hostage, they can actually tell you how much they want you to pay. So government has not been sincere in carrying the people along. And that is where the problem is. You know, the government needs to come out and tell the people the truth. If this girl is alive, they should also, while they're negotiating, they should tell the captives that, look, the Nigerian people want to be sure that this girl is still alive. Give us something. That is how negotiation begins. Show us some evidence that this lady is alive. Let us show it back to our principal, and then we'll continue negotiations from there.
Again, the federal government, talking about messaging, have said that, oh, we've technically defeated Boko Haram, and you know, they're just in tiny, we've pushed them out of, you know, those places they called caliphates. So they're now just coming out in tiny cells, you know, to attack. But if we have technically defeated, in the words of the army and the presidency, why are we having these number of kidnappings, especially for those aid workers who were going to help people who were displaced in the northeastern parts of the country? This has become a trend, and it's going to continue. So the fight against Boko Haram, can we really say that that fight has been somewhat won to an extent, or maybe we're just paying lip service to it? And with due respect to the army, they're doing a great job, but is it enough?
A few days ago, I think it was 2 days or 3 days back, we saw the picture of Minasa, the governor of Katsina State, with a bandit. And I'm asking, how did we get to this point where a governor who is meant to protect the life and properties of his citizens is standing and taking picture with a bandit, in quotes, or a militia, whatever you want to call them? So what is the message you're passing? The message you're passing is that this government is everything. I mean, the government is tired. The government cannot or do not have the willpower to do the right thing. I mean, Nigerian soldiers, we say they're the most gallant in Africa. They've gone out of Nigeria to other African nations. They have excelled. So what is the problem? A few years back, during the last tenure, Mr. President applied for $1 billion for defense. What has happened? It simply means that people...
Well, we have a former security chief in custody.
Well, it simply means that some people are benefiting from the plight of others. And this is where we need to, every one of us as Nigerians, we need to wake up and ask ourselves one question. Do we really believe in Nigeria? Do we want Nigeria to continue to exist? If we don't, let us sit down on the round table and shake hands and then wake up. But the way it is going right now, I am telling you, it is not smiling. It is not funny. It is not getting any better.
Well, I don't know about the sitting on a round table and shaking hands, but we'll have to go on a short break. We'll have to go on a short break, and when we return, we'll be talking about the persecution of Nigerian journalists who are bent on reporting their findings, especially when it comes to investigative journalism. Stay with us.